So let's say you're interested in geology. You've always been interested in geology. I'm not talking about just, you were 7 years old and you liked dinosaurs. I mean, beyond that, that love of geology never stopped. And you went into high school and you went into college, maybe, took a geology 101 class, but you still didn't really pursue that geology thing professionally. So now here you are, age 31, 35, 37, paying the bills, but that geology thing has never left you. Well, maybe you should come to Central Washington University and study geology. Yeah, this is a little pep talk. We are here, and you've been seeing some videos from campus. You're going to see a bunch more this spring from inside the building, and you'll see our students. They're not all 19-year-olds. They're not all white males. We have a diverse group. We have people of all shapes and sizes, and yes, all ages. Some of my favorite students are returning students. People who have decided mid-career that they're going to go back to school and they're going to get that geology degree, and they'd like to spend the second half of their career working as a geologist. That's a thing. You wouldn't be out of place if you did that. And you're like, well, I don't know. I don't live in Central Washington. That would be a huge move for me to move from Tennessee to Ellensburg, Washington. I don't think that's for me. Okay. Well, look into geology at a college near you. But for those in the Pacific Northwest, in Washington in particular, I'm not going to be coy about it. We want you to come here. This is a program that many of us are very proud of. And I have a bigger platform now than I had a couple of years ago. And so I want to just hit things right on the head here and say, this is a place where you can learn a lot, you can develop skills, you can pursue that interest in geology formally, graduate with a geology degree, and we have an incredible network of alumni who will extend themselves and make sure that there's plenty of job opportunities for you. Most of our graduates are now working at all different levels across the state, across the region, across the country. We have a track record. So, as you continue to watch these CWU Geology videos from Ellensburg, Washington, I don't know, I was just going to do them and not really explain why, but I think I felt today like I wanted to do that. I wanted to actually say, I'm doing these because I want to make sure that you know that Ellensburg, Washington is an excellent place to study geology, and we have a faculty and staff, we have grad students, we have undergraduates that are all firmly committed to being the best that they can be. Train boy! I'm out at Thorpe. I'll do a little geology lesson before we quit, in case you're feeling like you're ripped off somehow by getting this pep talk. I'm going to do this all in one take. So a couple final thoughts about that, and then I'll flip you around and I'll point out a couple of things about some Ice Age geology here that might interest you. Enrolling in the university is much easier than you think. Do you need a certain GPA? Not really. I think Central's pretty much interested in accepting anybody. So if you're worried about your track record with grades and everything, I don't think that's a concern. Well, how about becoming a geology major? That must be a huge ordeal, and you have to fill out paperwork. No, you just come visit me. It takes 3 minutes. We punch you into the computer. We declare your major. We accept everybody. If you're interested, if you're willing to work, doesn't matter how much background you have. And you're like, well, wait, I'm 33. I've never taken a geology class. I haven't done any math. I haven't done any chemistry at any level. Are you sure I could do that? Yeah. Just takes a little elbow grease, that's all. A commitment to what we're doing is all we ask. If you're willing to put the time in, the energy in, there's tremendous reward for you. If it's just personal reward, great. But if it's professional, and you want to continue in grad school or somehow working somehow as a geologist in the Pacific Northwest or further afield, yeah, we can make it happen. So I am getting too many emails to deal with on a general basis, and thanks again to all the folks who are emailing all these comments and feedback about these videos. I appreciate you doing that. I'm sorry I don't have the time to reply to each one. But if you're a potential student, I'll reply. And we can meet by Zoom. You can come in and visit with me if you're local here, and I can advise you however. I advise most of our geology majors, and I'm not kidding, that many are in their 30s. And some are very strong in science and allied sciences, meaning math, chemistry, and physics, and others are very weak, but they are willing to do the work. If you've never been to college before, you can start with us. If you're at a 2-year school in Washington and want to transfer your credits, it would be best for you to get an associate's degree and then transfer to us. But we can work that out too. The sky's the limit for you here at Central Washington University studying geology, and I would be your personal host to at least get you started. And if you've never had geology before, I am teaching Geology 101 this fall, 10 o'clock, every morning except Wednesdays, and love to have you in that class. Finally, before we do our little geology lesson and I flip you around, if you're over 50, if you're over 60, and you've always loved this geology thing, most universities do a terrible job at communicating the option that you can audit classes. I mean, for me, I've had people just sit in on the class for free without any paperwork or anything, but I'm sure most other universities don't allow that. And if you contact your local 2-year or 4-year university and express an interest in auditing, it's common that they charge you like $5 or something, I don't know, and you can sit in on any class that you like, assuming that there's an empty seat. That's the assumption. So if it's a class that's difficult to get into and students are clamoring to get in, that's a whole nother story, and there's not room for you. Okay, it doesn't work. But I can only speak for our department. We have plenty of empty seats in almost all of our classes. And you would be welcome to audit. Now, some of you know that I've been live streaming my classes, and I will do that again, especially with Geology 351 next spring, the spring of 2023. And that's my way of allowing you to kind of be part of the group even though you're physically not there. But, you know, we're talking about kind of face-to-face physical stuff, and, you know, the timing is right. We're finally done and back to normal life around here. And so, you know, there's a reason that the time is now that I'm making these videos promoting the geology department here at Central. So if you're in Tasmania and none of this applies to you, I understand. And we're going to start our little geology lesson here involving the Ice Age, I promise, in less than 1 minute. But my final comment is, when you see these other CWU Geology videos, and we're going to start going inside the building this week and next week, I think, for sure, keep in mind that I am trying to make sure that you can see that a place like here is a place that can work for you. I want you to major in geology someplace, and cherry on the cake would be, what? Be extra special if you enrolled here in Ellensburg, Washington. Okay, on to the geology lesson. Let's flip you around. Thank you. Okay, we've had a rainy Saturday. I've been home most of the day, but the rain has quit momentarily, and you are looking south. You are looking straight south to Menashtash Ridge on the horizon. That's one of the Yakima fold belts, or one of the folds in the Yakima fold belt. I'm swinging you to the southwest now. We're looking up towards the Tainum area. Mount Rainier would be visible if it was a clear day on the horizon. And this is that same little agricultural town called Thorpe, where the lahar was that we were looking at down at the road. But it's so green, it's so nice, the flowers are just starting to pop out here. I'm hoping to emphasize to you these terraces. Can you see that there's a modern floodplain of the Yakima River down at river level? I think we all know what a floodplain is. But your eye is drawn, isn't it, to this flat green field that's halfway up? That's a terrace. And that's the star of our show. Now, before I spill the beans on the significance of that terrace and what our understanding is, if we pan to the right, can you see that that terrace continues over here? I can't really see it. But those couple of steel sheds there, those roofs that are metallic looking, that's on a terrace at that same elevation as our friend across the way. And then, oh sure, you can, oh this is perfect. So you can see, can I frame it? So that terrace is at the same elevation of that terrace, and in the distance, on the other side of the Yakima River, the continuation of the terrace is over there. Pretty sweet, huh? Well, that's not an accident. The far terrace, the near terrace, the green terrace across the way, that used to be the valley floor. In other words, the Yakima River used to flow at the elevation of that green terrace across the way, halfway up. And at some point in the past, the Yakima River decided to leave that old valley floor and cut a new valley floor down low. But that's not the real exciting story. The exciting story is that those terrace levels continue, and there's more than just the two. So let me come over here. And there's a whole series of terraces at different elevations. There's another one. And the only concept I'm going to try to get in your head, it's complicated, so it's going to be a challenge for me to do this in one take, but I'll try. There was something called the Yakima Valley Glacier, an alpine glacier that flowed down the Yakima River Valley many times during the Ice Age. And we don't have an exact date, but we know that earlier in the Ice Age, that Yakima Valley Glacier, my hand is now the ice, got to that point and no closer to Ellensburg. Looking south, now looking southeast. Ellensburg's around the corner over there to the southeast. So the very top of this hill across the way is a terminal moraine. There's poorly sorted rocks up there. There's weathered rinds on those boulders. We don't have an exact date, but this is the terminal moraine for the Yakima Valley Glacier. First defined and mapped by Dr. Stephen Porter from the University of Washington back in the late 1960s. But my point is, there is a series of terraces that match the elevation of that moraine for when the glacier was here early in the Ice Age. So the concept is, when the ice is sitting here, it starts to melt, and there's a bunch of rivers coming off of this melting and shrinking ice. And those river cobbles that are deposited on a continuous slope is called an Outwash Terrace. And the Outwash Terrace, if you follow it, merges with the elevation of the terminal moraine. So early ice advance gets to here, lays down a moraine, and lays down some faint river terraces, most of which have been eroded away. Continue the story. Our big, fat, hefty advance of the ice melts back up into the mountains. Now sometime later, in other words, more close to present day, a smaller ice advance comes down, goes over Cle Elum, Washington. It gets to a place called Indian John, where there's a rest area along the freeway today. A younger glacial moraine gets deposited over there at Indian John, but the point is the elevation of that moraine is lower than this older moraine, and we're going to deposit another Outwash Terrace. River rocks being deposited on a flat plain. Ding, ding, ding. This, Outwash plain. This. Those are the Outwash plains that used to be continuous, made out of river cobbles coming off of a melting Indian John advance of the alpine ice. That ice melts back. By the way, there was a glacial lake in the Cle Elum area for a while. We have some blue-gray clay dominating and telling that story. Then an even younger advance that gets down to Suncadia, doesn't even get to Cle Elum. That is the advance about where Golf Course Road is. Lower elevation yet of the moraine, lower elevation yet of the terrace material. And that's what's down here low in the valley. So we have nested terraces, and without knowing the work of Steve Porter, you would just say, okay, well, the Yakima River was at different elevations making these floodplains. But the more interesting story is that we have a series of outwash terraces during the Ice Age from different ice advances. But the cool part is, and it doesn't go along with what you learn in Geology 101, is that as you drop in elevation, the terraces get younger, as opposed to Geology 101, which says if you have a series of layers, the one at the bottom is the oldest, the one at the top is the youngest. That's true for the Grand Canyon, but in this relatively advanced, sophisticated story, we keep laying down river terraces and then scooping out most of it by erosion before we start laying down the next outwash terrace. Best I can do with such a beautifully green scene in Thorpe, Washington, with some new homes that, in my opinion, have ruined the view, but that's just grumpy old man talking. Let's get them out of the frame. Glacial moraine, outwash terraces, geology, and you. Please consider moving to Ellisburg, Washington. Thank you, I love you, and goodbye.